We're back. Week 2 of Sonnets on the Close Reading Cooperative. I'm C.C. Wharram.
I'm Christopher Hanlon.
And we're here, back for the Sonnets.
And now last week, you sort of set me straight a little bit, I have to admit. Sonnets are not always about love.
No.
But more importantly, every sonnet contains a turning point called a volta.
Right.
And it sounds like the sonnet you used to teach me that last time, Charles, was of the Italian tradition, a kind of Petrarchan sonnet. So in other words, it has 8 lines, an octet, followed by 6 lines, a sestet. But it also sounded like, it sounded to me like you were about to say there's this whole different tradition.
There is an entirely different tradition, yes. When the Italian sonnets were brought over and translated into English, the English writers, first started using the Italian form. But then they started to tweak with the form a little bit, sort of fiddle around with it, and the Shakespearean sonnet was born. It's called the English sonnet, or we tend to often call it the Shakespearean sonnet because he's the man who's most well known to
I've heard of him. He's a great poet.
Big guy. In the sonnet world, he's number 2, if not number 1.
Right. Too bad he wrote none of them.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we won't get into that question on the Close Reading Cooperative. The sonnet I'd like you to actually read today was written by someone who really actually brought the sonnet form back to popularity so that someone like Wordsworth would even think about writing sonnets. The sonnet form kind of fell way out of favor during the 18th century, and suddenly there was this woman writer by the name of Charlotte Smith who brought it back. And she has, on the occasion of "On passing over a dreary tract of country and near the ruins of a deserted chapel during a tempest," at that particular point, she decided to jot down a sonnet to herself.
Can I read
it? Yes, you certainly may.
Okay.
Chris Hanlon will now have a reading.
Swift fleet the billowy clouds along the sky. Earth seems to shudder at the storm aghast, while only beings as forlorn as I court the chill horrors of the howling blast. Even round yon crumbling walls, in search of food, the ravenous owl forgoes his evening flight, and in his cave within the deepest wood, the fox eludes the tempest of the night. But to my heart congenial is the gloom which hides me from a world I wish to shun. That scene where ruin saps the moldering tomb suits with the sadness of a wretch undone. Nor is the deepest shade, the keenest air, black as my fate or cold as my despair.
Ooh, that's
not about love.
That's
not
dark.
love. Yeah.
That is very dark. So let's take a look and see how the form helps us to understand the way Charlotte Smith is understanding her little jaunt in the countryside here. Okay. So what we have here is we can see in the first 8 lines you have a series of rhymes: sky, eye, a ghast blast, food, wood, flight, night. We have a clear sort of pattern of 4 lines and 4 lines. And what looks like what we're going to have here is a setup for a Petrarchan sonnet, an Italian sonnet, because the next line begins with "but."
Yeah.
So you think, oh, I'm moving into.
But's like a turning point, right?
Yeah. But then you find out that those 4 lines operate in the same way. You have gloom, tomb, shun, undone, and you find out, wait a minute, I'm back on. I'm in a different
Another
sort of
quatrain.
Another quatrain. So we've got the first 12 lines all cohering into one sort of formal unit, and then what we get is the volta at the end with air despair. And we'll read those lines in a second, but basically what you end up getting is a classical Shakespearean sonnet that has 12 lines at the beginning, and then you have the little heroic couplet, the rhyming pair of lines at the end that then sort of undercuts or makes sort of like sort of almost like a punchline to the sonnet. It's like,
it's kind of
right there at the end. Well, that must have been loud.
Well, here it's like, this is bad stuff, but what's really bad is that my life is even worse than all of this cold and nasty stuff. And so it's, you're right, the rhymes signal a conceptual turn or volta that doesn't occur until those last 2 lines. So I see what you mean here.
So what you get in those, like after that, like fake volta, if you'd like, after those first 8 lines, you have something that sounds like she's saying, well, these forlorn creatures, these sort of natural elements, they reflect how bad my emotional or my feelings are towards what's happening to me, whatever that is. And then you think that you've experienced the turn, but it actually gets even worse. And so that's sort of the way she's playing with the form. She's using the form and then kind of extending it by saying, and even all of that isn't nearly as bad as my experience of how can I take a look at the lines there? Black is my fate, or cold is my despair. Nothing that I see in the world can even compare. It's just beyond expression.
Okay, so we've got two basic sonnet forms to think about and take away here. Yep. One is the Italian form, where you have a volta that comes after an octet. Right, and then which is followed by a sestet, in which this new idea, this new possibility is explored.
And generally that provides you with a more balanced form. You have sort of an 8-6 split. It's almost evenly distributed in terms of, first idea and then move into a second idea.
And on the other hand, this English Shakespearean tradition in which the volta comes after line 12, so the final couplet, that's the volta, that's where everything changes, everything is undermined, reconsidered, rethought.
Nicely put. Thanks.
Okay.
I can't say anything more to that, except to say it's over for today. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. See you next time in the Close Reading Cooperative.
Indeed.